Julian Edelman has tore his ACL. Yes, he will be out for the season, and Tom Brady will have to play without him. Now, when it comes to the New England Patriots, they love their slot receivers and all that, so this definitely is going to be a slight concern, and it's definitely worth reporting. Now, last night, a subscriber of mine, TGTV Tank Mode, obviously wanted to tell me about how he got injured. I already knew about him getting carted off the field, and I heard the report about it, but I just didn't want to report on it yet because when it came to the Ezekiel Elliott hearing, I reported that he was going to have the hearing. We were going to have it announced that the next day. And obviously, I'm still a very, very small YouTube channel right now, so it's not as if that everyone's is going to click on it. And the fact that saying that the hearing's going to be done on a day isn't really going to be announced. And when it comes to Edelman's injury, saying that he could miss the end of the season, what is it going to be? Really, in my mind, was something to report. But obviously, since it's now confirmed, I'm going to report it right now. Now, when it comes to Julian Edelman, he's obviously a very important part of the offense, and he is extremely important because if I was Bill Belichick, I would rather have Robert Gronkowski be out for the entire season than Julian Edelman. And I think most people would probably think if they had a team that if they had Gronkowski or Edelman, they would rather have Edelman out for the season than Gronk because Gronk is just such a freaking talent. But just how the Patriots play football, just how it plays with slot receivers, Edelman plays extremely important. And another thing I told my subscriber TGTV Take Mode on my last video of the top 5 players that should be in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, click on that when you're done watching these videos because, guys, these videos are amazing, right? And I think one thing when you look at this is I think that he could be retired after this because I don't think he might play anymore. I really don't. I think that what could happen is that since he's in his early 30s, he's kind of used as if he's a running back in that offense. He takes a lot of abuse, and I don't really see him possibly coming back, or it's going to be really, really hard for him to return. And he ain't getting any younger. He's actually a lot older than you think he is. And this guy, obviously, he didn't emerge until 2013, but yeah, he by that point he was already had 4 years, 5 years experience in the NFL. So this could be a career ender for Julian Edelman. Now, on another note, some positive things, I guess, positive you could so say, is that the Patriots obviously have a really, really stacked offense, so this could not play a big factor. And they do believe in the next man up philosophy, which I'll get to in a little bit later. But when you look at it, Danny Amendola, obviously, in my mind, he's similar to Julian Edelman, to how he plays. However, he is worse at everything that Julian Edelman is, except for receiving and catching the football. That's the one thing he is. I think Amendola has much better hands than Edelman. Even with that ridiculous catch in the Super Bowl, that took a lot of luck. I think Amendola has far better hands than Julian Edelman, but obviously Julian Edelman is a better receiver. They also have this new wide receiver that they got from undrafted. He could be good. He could suck. I don't know. He's been playing out there a lot, and they like him. His name's Austin Carr. This is the same guy that Dan Le Batard got in trouble for because Dan Le Batard basically said that the Patriots have a new white receiver. Obviously, the New England Patriots are known for having a lot of white personnel, even at the running back and receiving position, where you typically don't have Caucasian players there. But actually, Austin Carr is not fully Caucasian, and what happened was Dan Le Batard got into a little bit of trouble with that. So they had that Austin Carr guy, and then they got their big offseason acquisition and Brandon Cooks. Now, Brandon Cooks, a lot of people look at him, he's a deep threat, and when he was in New Orleans, he could be used as a slot receiver too, and New England loves their slot receivers, so you could put Brandon Cooks there, and Cooks obviously brings more of a speed element to him, and I think he can use more of his body than Julian Edelman. They both struggle with the idea of getting off the press. If you get physical with them, they're definitely going to struggle, but you definitely get a really talented receiver there, and I think that they lost their depth there, but I think depth was their strongest entity for the New England Patriots, and that plays a big role. Now, a lot of people are comparing this New England Patriots team to the 2007 New England Patriots, and obviously that's a very talented unit itself. I would say the 2007 unit had more stars on that offense versus this New England Patriots offense has a lot more depth versus stardom. And I just look at that and I think to myself that it's probably not going to play too big of a role. The 2007 Patriots lost one of their best players, a player that could be in the Hall of Fame one day, Richard Seymour, during the middle of the season. And obviously, he's obviously a great player, but they did without him. And trust me, in that Super Bowl against the New York Giants, if Asante Samuel got that interception, if they could just defend against David Tyree, obviously that Super Bowl could be a lot different. And I think that Richard Seymour was almost a Hall of Famer. Now, Julian Edelman isn't a Hall of Famer. He's one of these guys who's a good receiver, not a great one, but he's one of these guys you want on your football team because he's tough. And when it comes to wide receivers, the most underrated um, trait about a wide receiver is their toughness, whether they're tough or not. Because in a big game, you're going to be relying on passing the football late in the game. When it comes to running backs, you don't really need to worry about running back in the clutch, really, unless if he's trying to run out the clock there. But when it comes to a receiver, you're going to have to pass the ball in the final 2 minutes. So you really need a tough wide receiver who can fight for that adversity. That's Julian Edelman. He might not be one of these top 10 receivers. He might not do all these ridiculous stats and whatnot, but he is definitely tough. That's why I look at Hines Ward. That's why Hines Ward won 2 Super Bowls, because he was tough. That's why Antoine Bowen won a Super Bowl. He's tough. Now, the reason why Randy Moss never won a Super Bowl, I didn't think he was very tough. Now, I love Randy Moss. And when it comes to toughness, that's one of the traits he lacks, and that's why I think he never ever won a Super Bowl, because he just never played well in the big moment. It's a underrated fact about it. And when it comes to wide receivers, you gotta rely on them on a big moment. You need to throw to them in the times when it's 2 minutes, and that's what Julian Edelman's good for. Now, when it comes to that, that's a little bit of an unknown. So this plays a role for them when it plays in the Super Bowl. Come on, with the Patriots, this team this year, it's Super Bowl or bust. It not only reaching the Super Bowl, it's about winning the Super Bowl. So that's really the most important factor with this. And so when I look at this, I think the Edelman injury plays a huge role there. And when I look at Julian Edelman, a lot of people say he's a system-based player. Now, when I think of this, I think it's open up for debate whether he's system-based or not. I think one thing for sure, when you look at Julian Edelman, he's had some comparisons that people don't know how to compare. Deion Sanders, for some reason, absolutely loves Julian Edelman. I think I kind of know why, though. It's the fact that maybe Deion Sanders never really covered the inside receivers as well, or the wide receivers that ran up the middle. I know that sounds weird. You're talking about prime time, but obviously it might have been the technique he was playing right there. However, it was just like he might have been at a disadvantage in how the way they played their defense, not really ability-wise. If you line Deion Sanders like up and like do all that stuff where he played a little bit closer and all that, he would do much better against them. But obviously, that was one of his weaknesses, was the inside receiver. And also, one thing for sure is Julian Edelman's idol when growing up, I believe, was Deion Sanders. I think he used to match himself like Deion Sanders. I think he was a 49ers fan when growing up. I knew he grew up in California. I just looked that up. So, and he really enjoyed Deion Sanders. And I guess Deion Sanders doesn't want to repeat what Mr. Incredible was in The Incredibles. And if you never saw that, basically, there's this villain named Syndrome and all of that, who used to be a fan of Mr. Incredible when he was really young, but Mr. Incredible, who was a superhero, kind of scoffed at him and just kind of like just ignored him to give the attention and was negative, and then Syndrome basically becomes this villain outfit. One of my favorite Pixar movies to watch. But enough with my vicariously looking at Pixar movies. I look at this and I think to myself that Edelman, obviously, he brings that feist, and I think the one comparison is Steve Smith. I think that's a good guy to compare him to. And when it comes to these offense, a lot of people think that the Patriots just run a certain offense. It's a very specific kind of offense. No one really runs it besides the Houston Texans and I think Nick Saban's Roll Tide down there in Alabama. So those are really the only teams that run that, or Hart Perkins offense. And I talk a little bit more about my video, how to defeat the New England Patriots. Click in the link in the description if you're interested. But guys, you're almost done with the video, so you want to keep watching this, of course. So when it comes to this, Julian Edelman, I think when you look at him, it's kind of weird to see a wide receiver's number one route to be a out route, a 5-yard out route, because most of them, you can think of a bunch of wide receivers that their favorite route to run is the go route. And when it comes to Julian Edelman, it's a 5-yard out route, and that just seems a little bit weird. And obviously, not many receivers have their bread and butter to be that 5-yard out route. I think Cole Beasley is an example. But a lot of people compare Edelman to Wes Welker. I saw Wes Welker go into the Denver Broncos offense and do very well in it. He might not have gotten the yards, but it's never really about the yards with the slot receivers. And he got the receptions, and he definitely got the touchdowns when he was with Peyton Manning. And obviously, it was hard to get the ball in that offense because you had Demaryius Thomas when he wasn't a pus, you had Eric Decker, and you had Julius Thomas. So you had a lot of talent right there. And so it was kind of hard to kind of spread out the ball. And Wes Welker still did well. And also, when it comes to this, Edelman, he has the route running ability. He has the intelligence for a wide receiver. Not saying like he's like Albert Einstein or anything, but he definitely knows what he's doing. And also, he's explosive. He's quick, and you do need those wide receivers in the offense. A lot of people think of them as the big outside receivers most of the time, but in the West Coast offense, it requires a lot of route running, and route running is very important for a receiver. And Edelman kind of has that. Now, when it comes to this overall, the Edelman injury is definitely going to place a hole in the Patriots are together to adjust. But however, the best teams in the NFL always have next man up. I know the Patriots get a lot of attention for the next man up, but other teams do a lot of next man up. I thought the Seattle Seahawks with CJ Prosise was a next man up kind of thing last year. I remember the Steelers, if Le'Veon Bell goes down, they still got DeAngelo Williams to rely on. That's next man up right there. I've heard the Atlanta Falcons last year lost Desmond Trufant, used Robert Alford. Robert Alford ended up being a pretty good corner. He got a pick six in the Super Bowl. He did a lot in that game. So obviously, you're talking about next man up is usually the better teams in the NFL. They have that. And that's what they usually do. If you have next man up, and that's basically very important just because NFL, there's so many different positions right there. There's like 53 men on a roster, and it's so important to have that. And it's whether you have backup depth or you have starting depth, depending on how you look at it. Next man up can you can have that if you have the starting depth or the backup depth. Obviously, if you have backup depth, you have a guy who gets injured, he comes up and he still plays well, or you have the starting depth that could basically be so talented that another positional group wouldn't be has to rely on. So, for instance, if you have a really good pass rush, but you lose your starting cornerback, if you have a really good pass rush, you're not going to really worry too much about your starting cornerback too much, just because you're going to get to the quarterback so quickly. So that's kind of a thing to kind of look at, and that's how you can do the next man up kind of philosophy. And obviously, the Patriots are king of that, and I think that if you're the best team in the NFL, you're definitely going to have that next man up. I mean, they've been they never had a losing season. I think their last losing season was in 2000. I want to say 2000. And so it's been a while. So overall, I think the Edelman injury is definitely a hurdle that they have to adjust to, but they have more than capable to adjust to. And let's just say the Patriots lose the Super Bowl, no excuses for Julian Edelman being injured.